My father was sick, and I wanted to find a way that I could help him. And in the pursuit of trying to find what I could do, I ran across physical therapy. The therapist who came out to visit him made a recommendation of, since you're here already and help and take care of him, have you ever thought about becoming a therapist? And I told her, no, I already have a job. Took her advice, went back to school, and ironically, as soon as I finished with school, I got hired on the spot at Brooks and been there ever since. I saw the families that would walk out and they would have hope that their loved ones would at least be normal enough for them to get them back home. I remember when we were talking about my dad and he was sick, and that was the last thought that we wanted. I mean, the whole family gathered together and we were trying to make every effort to keep him home. So that was one of those things that I promised myself, that when I became a therapist, I would try to make sure that everybody was treated like family. My own father never got to see me. Never got a chance to help him. Sadly, he passed away before. It made a difference for me. I mean, I felt like if somebody walked out that door, it was like watching my dad getting the therapy that he deserved.
I have never met someone who cared so intensely about his patients.
I would receive emails from clinical liaisons in the community asking to have Michael as the therapist for a specific patient that was going to be admitting before the patient would even admit to Brooks.
There were many times that I would talk to his patients and they would tell me, Michael sees me. He sees me. He sees the value in me when I could not see the value in myself.
Mike was assigned to me to do my physical therapy, and everything was going all right. But in my mind, I was like, will I ever be able to walk again, talk again, go home to my condo again? Those are the three questions that were lingering in my mind, and I did not have the answer. He allowed me to say, I don't know if I can make it. And as I said, that reassuring voice, he said, you can make it. You can make it if you want to make it. I gained strength from Michael.
He said, what do you want to get out of being here? I said, I want to get out with as close to 100% as I can get. He said, okay, I will come and get you every single break that I get. And he did.
I just can't thank him enough for how dedicated he is. He gives 110% to everything that he does, and it shows in our recovery.
Nobody can tell that I've even had a stroke. I've been really blessed. Michael and God's grace got me where I am. I would do anything for Michael. I love that man.
He really helped me to get where I am today.
He always thinks of these patients as if they were his family member. And if it was his family member in this position, he would want the best care for them. And that is what he always strived for, was giving the best patient care to anyone that crossed his path.
On October 11th, 2022, that's when my entire life changed.
He was sitting on the floor by the bed just trying to catch his breath. He was having a hard time breathing. I followed the ambulance. He was sitting up. He was talking, and they said, we're going to take him to the cath lab. You can see him in a couple hours. So I was just thinking that they were going to be able to do some stents or something, and life was going to go on. The surgeon came out, and he just ripped his cap off his head, and he said that Michael had suffered a massive heart attack and he had extensive damage to his heart, and that if he was able to get off the heart pump, that he might have 6 to 8 years left to live. I just couldn't process it. It was later that day that I overheard the surgeon talking to the transplant team at Mayo and saying that that was his only chance of survival. So by Monday, they had weaned him off the heart pump and said that they felt like they could manage it with medications, but he would need a transplant long term. He was scheduled to go home on the 26th. So he was in intensive care, so I went to work. On that Tuesday morning, I get a call from him, and it's his phone, but he's not answering. I can just hear commotion in the background, and I didn't know what had happened. Matthew Medueno, who used to be one of the techs at Brooks, picked up the phone and he said, "Michael's had a stroke." Luckily, because he was in the ICU at Mayo, they were able to react quickly. By Friday, you wouldn't realize that he'd just had a stroke, so they thought he was ready to come home, and we were all excited to have him home. So he discharged on that Friday, and Saturday morning, when he woke up, he looked at me and he said, "It's happening again." When the paramedics got there, he was very weak. He was in very bad shape. They kept him longer that time to try to work out a medication regimen. And during that stay, I told them, I said that I was a breast cancer survivor. My biggest fear in life is how to get children becoming orphans. I said, "Can you please start the process to get him staged for a transplant?" The doctor told me that it's supposed to be 6 months from the time that he had a stroke before they could start the process. But he agreed that Michael didn't have that much time. We moved, we got closer, we tried to get ourselves ready for the heart transplant.
So when Michael came here to the stroke and cardiac unit as a patient, I reached out to him ahead of time and I said, "Are you sure that you want to come to the 3rd floor? You work so closely with all of these individuals for so many years." And he said, "Yes, 100%. I feel the most safe in their hands, and I wouldn't want to go anywhere else."
It's a different feeling when you are the patient, and it also gives you an awareness of, wow, so this is what it really is like, and it makes you appreciate what you work for even more. But it also made me feel very good for the organization that I work for, because it was like, wow, this is top notch. I'm here, and I'm getting the best care that I could possibly get.
In the first couple weeks of January, we went out to Mayo for routine blood work. It looked like he was going to pass out. So they sent the rescue team from Mayo on foot to get him. And they loaded him on the stretcher and ran to the emergency room. His heart was failing and he was very, very close to death. On March 9th, which was only about a month after he was there, we got the call that there was a donor heart. They prepped him, got him ready for surgery, took him down to the OR, and I waited. About 4 hours later, one of the doctors came up and leaned up against the wall, and he said it wasn't a good heart. So we decided at the last minute to call the surgery off. It was only a couple of days later, on March 11th, we heard that there was another heart available and that he would be going to transplant, but they said it would be the next morning on the 12th. So we prepped and got ready, and this time it was a success. He was in a lot of pain, as you can imagine, but in true Michael fashion, he never complained. He got up and took his first steps, and then after that it was every day he got stronger, he was walking more, and then about 10 days later he was ready to come home.
Oh my God,
that's right. A friend of mine once told me that tomorrow is never promised, and I always remember those words, because having lived through that, it isn't, and sometimes we lose sight of what is important. I am fixed. I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing now. So I am enjoying my time with my family. It's a humbling experience, but it's something that I'm very, very grateful for. I cannot tell everyone thank you enough for everything that they've done.